Hi everyone, I'm coming to you from my art classroom. I've been a high school art teacher for the past almost 8 years and just a classroom teacher for the past almost decade. But I recently turned in my resignation in order to do something a little more adventurous, something that has kind of been on hold for a really long time. And now it's just time for me to do that. And in the spirit of that, I painted my large Kikki K binder that was in black Saffiano material. I painted it so that it looks like it has a galaxy print. I shared this on Instagram and some people said that they would really like to see how I did this. So I filmed the process of it, and it's going to be time-lapse because it did take me a little while to do this, and I try to keep my videos a little bit shorter. But if you're interested in seeing how I went about galaxy painting my Kikki K large binder, then stick around and watch the video and you can see how I went through and did this. So what you can see here is my Kikki K large binder. It has no paint on it just yet, but that's about to change. There's the front, there's the back, and here is the inner guts taken out. I'm going to be using Reeves brand paint. They are a medium-bodied paint, and each of them are about the size of like a small tube of toothpaste, like a travel size. I'm going to be using warm and cool versions of every color and an open palette, which basically means every color of the rainbow. I'm doing this for very specific reasons, like warm and cool versions of each color, and that's because when it comes to painting, what you can do is you can do something called push and pull space, making something look closer or farther away. You'll see the whole kind of rainbow array there. You could also use potted paints, which are fluid acrylics, but I just prefer medium body acrylics that come in the tubes. And I am going to use the potted paints, but not just yet. So here are the brushes that I'm going to be using. There are long-handled brushes and short-handled brushes, and instead of having a little dish of water, I prefer to actually saturate a piece of paper towel and then use that, and then a dry piece of paper towel. Here is a palette knife, and this is just to mix paints. And then I'm using a piece of wax paper that's actually the leftover from like a sticker sheet. And I'm going to use this to mix paints. I have a white one, and then I'm going to be using an old divider from the Arc disc thing that's black, and that's just so I can see the colors a little bit better. Here's my workspace, and I have my colors laid out. As I said, I'm going to be using, heavy or medium weight, and then like the fluid acrylics. I'm just scooping some paint out here. And whenever you mix paints, it's always a good idea for you to add the color to the white or the black in order to make it whatever tone you want it to be. I'm scooping just a little bit, and then I'm going to mix a little bit in there in the white. And I did a couple of portions of white, and that's so that I can have a couple different versions of colors. And you'll see having it there in the black background helps me to see a little bit better what that color is going to look like on the black background of the Kikki K large planner. So as you can see, I have been mixing colors to get just the general palette that I want. Purple, a little bit of an orange, red, a red, really more of a crimson, and then 2 different versions of blue. And I apologize for that weird looking hair that's sitting right on top of my Kikki K there. I just noticed it. I didn't notice it when I was filming, but I have 2 dogs, so that happens, but that's driving me crazy, so hopefully it won't drive you crazy. It shouldn't be that noticeable too long. So now I'm using a short-handled brush. Short-handled brushes are best for craft style painting. There we go. And I'm holding it at the end of the paintbrush, and I'm holding it with my hand over rather than under. And the reason why you want to hold a paintbrush that way is because it actually gives you a lot greater control over the pressure that you use when you're applying paint. And what you can see is I am very quickly just kind of touching the paint and the brush onto the surface of the Kikki K. And you'll see when I kind of switch to more like a pencil pen style holding of it, that restricts your motion that you otherwise could use when you're applying paint. And while it might seem like I'm doing this in a little bit of a haphazard way, I'm used to actually painting galaxy style on big, giant, oversized canvases, so I'm very, very fluent in galaxy style painting, because for a while, when I was doing fine art painting in oils, this was a lot of what my focus was. I used to study pictures from the Hubble telescope and read lots of books about astronomy in order to fully inform kind of the stylistic approach that I would take. So that's kind of where my experience comes from. I'm classically trained fine art painter, and I much prefer oils, but acrylics do the job, especially for something like this. So you can see now that I have applied all different colors on there, and it's getting very colorful. I'm adding some lighter colors in there to give it some contrast. And I'm still holding that paintbrush with my hand over top of it, almost like it's a magic wand. And in the art classroom, I always will tell my painting students, painting, it is like magic. It puts you back together. It makes you feel like you can do anything. It's a real mental game. I think that's why most people really enjoy it. It does something to you that is different than any other type of artwork. And painting is actually the most intuitive type of artwork that anybody can do. We are more naturally painters than we are drawing. Drawing is incredibly technical, and it is something that you can learn. But I mean, you can learn painting too, but painting just comes a lot more naturally to most people. So as you can see, I have been putting colors just all over the place. I have not applied the stars just yet, and that's just because I've been trying to build layers of paint, thin layers of paint, so that when you see a certain area of color, you can kind of see through it and see other colors behind it. And you'll see I keep going back and forth and doing kind of light colors and then dark colors. And I haven't really been narrating it, but I've also been doing cool colors and then warm colors. And by doing that, it's going to give this a feel of having more dimension, having actual depth. There we go, I'm going on the tab there, and then I'm going to flip this over. It doesn't really matter that the paint on the other side isn't dry, just because it looks better if it's a little more smudgy. The back I'm applying colors to, just like I did on the front. However, I'm not going to spend as much time on it. And ultimately what ended up happening is the back ended up looking like a much more subtle kind of a galaxy painting than the front, but that's fine with me. I am really not bothered by that. But just in the same sort of fashion that I did the front of this, I'm doing this on the back. Now, if you search around on YouTube, there are actually a lot of tutorials of how to do galaxy-style painting. A lot of really great tutorials. Some of them I looked at, and some of them are, well, they're a lot easier to understand than what I'm doing here. That's just because I didn't intend for this to really be a tutorial so much as for you to just see the process and just kind of what I went through in order to get the galaxy stylized Kikki K that I ended up with. What you'll find when you look at other people's tutorials is they take a much different approach than I do. And again, it's because I'm approaching this from the perspective of classical kind of painting techniques, which is a little bit different from what they do. What they do is a lot easier. I could go through and kind of explain in a lot more detail kind of what I'm doing, but this is not really a painting lesson. I just wanted to show you the process, especially after I showed this on Instagram, and then people remarked that they would be interested in seeing how I kind of made this happen. So what you'll see here is I have gone in with some brighter colors in order to make and just kind of shape some of the areas that seem like they're a little bit darker and deeper. And that sounds really, really weird, but you can actually use warm and cool colors to give, like, space shape. And certainly, you know, so there's the back there, and I'm going to do a little bit of this on the back. Like I said before, the front ended up being a lot more colorful than the back, but I'm fine with that. I prefer a galaxy stylized kind of painting with a lot more color. And so that's why I did it this way. I like using an open palette of colors, and I get a little bit carried away, but I can always go back in and just kind of touch it up, deepen it with some blacks and some warm and cool kind of navy blues and purples if I really, really want to. So what I'm doing is I'm basically just kind of looking at this and then touching it in places where it seems like it needs a little more warmth. Now I'm going to get ready to add some of the stars and things. And I'm going to do this in 2 different modes. I'm going to do this with fluid acrylics after I get through and kind of deepen and kind of darken the space. I'm going to actually place the star marks, I guess, with a very, very small, round, fine brush. And then I'm also going to use a larger brush that is a little bit frayed on the end, and I'm going to use that to kind of like spray, or like, I guess like flick kind of paint that is representative of stars. I'm going to get to that in a minute, but just wanted to explain that to you so that when it gets to it, you'll be able to see it. I think I'm almost there. Sorry this is taking so long. I didn't expect for this to be such a long video. I try and cap it at about like 15 minutes, but like I said, this was time-lapsed, so it took me like well over an hour for me to do all of this. And you'll see the colors that I used. It's definitely the colors are a lot more rich looking, and you're seeing a lot more kind of subtle contrast. And when I paint, especially when I am working on something like this, it's always really important for me to build color, doing thin layers of paint over and over again. I use complementary colors, so colors like red and green together, blue and orange together, and then purple and yellow together. And when you use complementary color pairings, what they do is they actually will emphasize and activate one another. So if you put blue and orange together, or like next to one another, it will make one look very bright and very true. The same thing with when you use red and green, or when you use purple and yellow. So when I'm placing colors and placing marks, instead of brushing, like I said, I'm like placing very intentionally the marks and the colors. I'm doing it with regard to whatever color is already there. You'll see any place where there's orange, there's also blue that is in pretty close proximity to it. Or I might have put yellow that's near enough to like a purple. You'll see that there's red and blue there that's like right next to each other, and those are primary colors, so they kind of work together. And now you're seeing it's very, very kind of swirly and extra. It's blended in some areas, and the color is kind of purely there in some areas. So now I'm going to get ready to go ahead and place and paint the stars. And you'll see here I have switched the way that I hold the brush so that it is more pencil pen style than overhanded magic wand style. And this is so that I have very specific control over where I'm placing the marks. And I'm going through, and based upon what I know and what I've studied and what I've already done with my experience with galaxy painting on canvases, I'm placing stars in very specific arrangements and ways all over the place, so that they just kind of make sense for what I know of, like when you look at the night sky, or when you look at kind of like a Hubble space photography. I do end up going a little bit crazy and putting maybe a little bit too many stars on there. Here I'm flicking the paint on. I'm using the fluid acrylics because they are lighter, and so they tend to fly a little bit farther, and I'm doing a whole lot. I end up doing more than what I need, but that's because what I'm going to do after I kind of flick the paint on is I'm going to soften some of the marks and get rid of some of them so that you actually see them through color. And then it makes just the overall look of this kind of galaxy style painting, it makes it look more realistic. It gives it some layers. There are layers of stars, there's layers of colors, layers of dark and layers of light, and it ends up just looking a lot more realistic. Here I am kind of flicking more stars on there, and again, what I'm doing just over and over again is just layering paint and layering color. softening some marks, blending some out, but just very specifically doing it. Taking a look at what I have, adding a little bit more, subtracting, taking away from it. And my goal is just to give this a look so that it looks like it has depth to it. So it does look realistically but stylized, like the most beautiful kind of night sky that you could imagine. I use white paint as well as I use a very light color yellow that's mixed with white, and that's to give this a look of having both warm and cool colors of stars, or star arrangements. And you'll see there I'm kind of adding in some haloing around the effects of like the stars if they were kind of going to be illuminated. One of my very favorite colors to use whenever I paint is alizarin crimson, and it's a very warm sort of a red. The way that alizarin crimson works is it's very deep, it's very elegant looking, and using alizarin crimson as opposed to a more classic kind of a red, it actually can make a certain area of a painting feel like it's a little bit closer. It kind of pulls it to you. It actually will seem like it's just closer. You'll see I used alizarin crimson, and now I'm using a purple, like a violet that's a warm violet. And again, because it's a warm color, it feels like it advances towards you. And then it gives this look of this galaxy kind of night sky. It makes it look like it actually has depth. Rather than it being kind of flat, it gives it real dimension. And you'll see that I have paint all over my hands, and this is pretty typical for what happens to me when I get to painting. Sometimes I even will just use one of my hands as a palette, and I will just kind of like hold the paint or mix paint right there on the palm of my hand. But I've gotten a little bit better, a little bit cleaner, I guess, with my working process, and so now I use a palette. And you'll see I just continue to kind of flick stars and like star patterns with the brush with the different techniques, and then softening it over and again. And it's just a back and forth. Now I have just kind of, I think I was going to flip it over, and then I ended up not doing it. But anyway, this is pretty much kind of like the process of what I went through in order to fully paint and stylize my Kikki K large binder, so that it looks like it's galaxy painted or galaxy printed. And using this Kikki K Saffiano style leather planner, it was brand new when I got it, and I didn't have any problem with it being necessarily black, but I don't know, I love to paint, I love artwork, and I feel like what better thing to do than to take two things that I love, painting and planning, and put them together. I'm really pleased with how my planner turned out, and maybe someone else thinks that I'm crazy for doing this, but I don't regret it, and this is actually something that I did for a very, very specific reason, another sort of a creative endeavor that I'm doing that goes a little bit beyond planning, but I made this galaxy style for a very specific reason, and I'll announce kind of the details of that later, because it might be of interest to you. So there we go. There is my galaxy style planner. And I really hope that you enjoyed watching this tutorial. I'm just going to kind of let it run until the outro, but so that you can kind of see just as I finish it up. Okay, So, thank you all so much for watching my videos. Like I said in my intro, and now what I'm saying in my outro, is I am endeavoring to really go full force with planner printables and then also YouTube content. I definitely want to do more videos here on this channel, but I also have been working on starting a new channel for some of the new directions that my life is taking. And I don't have those things set up just yet, but I will have them set up soon enough, and I'll share that with you because I think some of you all might be interested in it, especially if you're educators, or if you are moms and dads, or if you're trying to make this stay-at-home or work-at-home parent thing work, or if you're really interested in educational pursuits like homeschooling and unschooling, things of that sort, then my next kind of big adventurous endeavor might be of special interest to you. As I said before, I've been a classroom teacher and I've also been a department head for almost a full decade, and prior to that I had experience working in behavioral and clinical psychology. I also have a lot of business experience. I know I've done a lot. I have done a lot, honestly, and it's all really led me to this point. So I'm taking not a leap of faith, but I'm doing some major moves of strategy in my life in order for me to do the things that I know that I should always have been doing just from the get-go. All of these things have kind of led me to this path and to this point, and I'm going for full force with it. So I've called myself a corporate world escape artist, just because I am an artist and I am a designer, and I don't know. I'm really excited about this time in my life. It's definitely been a lot of change for me, but it's really, really cool. It's really cool to see how everything is just kind of really finally coming together. So I will let you know when the new kind of project, we'll call it, is up and running enough for you to take a look at it and see if maybe it's of interest to you. In the meanwhile, I have started another Instagram account called The Planet Junior, all one word, to just kind of chronicle my unschooling / homeschooling adventures with my daughter, just because we're going to embark on that for a little while and see how it works out, and yeah, who knows what could come of that. So again, thank you so much for watching all of my videos and for your support and for your encouragement. I love interacting with people on Instagram, and I definitely love interacting with people here on YouTube, even though I've not done the best job at it. But now that I'm kind of like venturing to do something that is like full force, a creative content kind of part of the maker movement, I will have more time to be able to interact with you all and to bring you all better and thoughtful and more intentional content. So that's all. I will see you in the next video, and thanks so much for watching. Bye!